So we're all leaders here in the future of workspace, and we're leading in the midst of massive change, especially going to great lengths to understand every person, every colleague, associate, and every space, and how those two elements integrate and harmonize. And I think that's what we're all finding the challenge is. All the conversations we've had, whether you're growing space, shrinking space, whatever's going on, is all about people first, and then spaces to meet their needs and all of our needs. So spaces which inspire and support individuality, that's what we're about today. The huge plethora of variation that there is in what we're calling the workspace jungle, because it's quite complex. It's living and it's breathing and it's changing. So we've used the jungle for today's talk. I'm Nick Baxter, I'm Head of Strategy at Spacestor, and joined by Harvey, Head of Strategic Accounts, and together we head up the Spacestor Experiential Research Team, and we look to understand, talk to lots of big employers and lots of operators of large real estate about the needs and the solutions and the unexpected gotchas that happen. And we try and curate that, share on an appropriate basis, share best practice right across our regions. And for us, that's US, UK, EMEA primarily, and the rest of the world where our clients take us. And a great long-term customer, client, and I think advocate of Spacestor joins us today, Doris Guerrero. Thanks, Doris, for joining us. Sure. Just give us your title and your role.
Okay, so I have a funny role. My official role is kind of institutional, so I just lead the design team at Intuit. I've been there a year, and it's been a big year of change for Intuit and myself. I come from the design world, and I came from global accounts, which I've met all kinds of folks all around the world, and I've been able to see the commonalities and the differences, so I think that really informs my approach to design. We have 18,000 employees globally, which is not huge, but not tiny. And currently we've shifted our approach to workplace design from a kit of parts or guidelines into more of a narrative about experience. And that's what we're going through currently.
Exactly. Individual experience is what it's all about. The quick intro on Spacestor. For those of you who don't yet know us, our tagline is California Cool plus London Design, and that speaks to innovation, cutting edge, whether it's Silicon Valley or harking back to the gold rush, the Californian spirit of what's next, combined with our long London design heritage. So for more than 30 years, we've been solving workspace problems, one form or another. And we are creators of modular space-defining furniture, zone division, pods and booths, but importantly, it's customizable. So we can constantly, what we're seeking to do is co-create the best possible product, allow you to express your design language, and working with a solid base of product with certifications, sustainability check through, but then customized to your needs. So feel we're in a great position to learn from many co-creations with great big employers and workspace operators. We just wanted to share some of our thoughts and themes today. The three headings are the jungle dial, uniqueness at scale, and workplace viscosity. So the dial is an illustration that we've put together, and what we were trying to look at was the huge variety of factors which affect our workspaces and what's needed in our workspaces. So we've got 5 important vectors on here. I'm sure there'll be others. Everyone could probably come up with another important factor, but we've got the corporate character, and that's the way that all of our organizations have a level of traditionality, or maybe early adopters, going back to the Geoffrey Moore reference from Rex yesterday. We have different characters in our companies, and then we have different characters within the teams. So HR and coding, just won't be the same. Finance and marketing, there will always be differences between those teams. And then we have the individual preferences. And that's probably the most storied, the most reported, how each of us has our own preferred work mode and work setting. Some of us can work in a noisy environment. Some of us just cannot, or we need to have a lot of quiet to really get our heads down and get something cracked out. Then we have the activity genre, and that might be how we move from a quarterly review meeting to a collaborative situation to intensive work on a spreadsheet. And then we have the growth mode, and that's on the organization. So I had some great conversations the last 2 days, and some of you are expanding year on year in footprint of real estate. Really, really good to hear that as well. Some are paring back very intentionally and carefully. So there's a growth mode, and all of these are 1 to 10. If we multiply those together, we get 100,000 options of potentially required workspace. And I don't think that's any exaggeration. When we heard from Liz Burrow that there's about 100 delegates representing almost 7 million personnel in our organizations, there's a huge amount. This is the uniqueness at scale that we're talking about. There's a huge amount of variety needed. And with all that variety, we're trying to deliver Workspace as a product, and that's relatively fixed. And we say relatively, there's things can be done to soften it, but we have to deliver this product of Workspace to suit everybody, to last, say, 5 years. And how much change is likely to happen in 5 years? You know, the perspective we have now, the amount of change in the last 5 years, how much change can we expect in the next 5 years? So we talk about workspace viscosity, and that's the extent to which we build in change and softness and ability to flex. So we've got some examples of quick change and larger, what we talk about 2-hour, 2-day, and 2-week changes. So a 2-hour is where the associates, the team members themselves, can make some changes, like with this reconfiguring the bleachers. A 2-day might be getting facilities in, might be over a couple of nights to move some elements around, enlarge or compress different neighborhoods. And 2-week shifts is usually where you need some services, maybe some trades, a GC coming in. For a larger operation, might have to sort some ventilation or something associated with the change of space. But the point is, we believe there's a great value to building in this future flex at this point as we're reimagining workspace. So I'll hand over now to Alex, take us through some of the different work modes or animal habits in the jungle.
That's great, thanks Nick. And yeah, just kind of segueing from where Nick's tailed off there. Thank you. Just thinking about the audience we have here, the work that you guys do blows my mind. That combination of uniqueness at scale, hundreds of thousands of potential variants across the workforces, the employees that are within your organizations, kind of coupled with that fixed nature of the workspace and the work you do in designing space, creating space, but also maintaining space that attracts and retains the best people to work for your organizations. As I say, it blows my mind. And what we wanted to do was take some of those personas or work modes and draw a parallel with different animal behaviors and typologies. And one point I'd like to make, this isn't necessarily about pigeonholing your employees, because I think we all know that we have a variety of work modes that we might adopt that may not necessarily be our first preferred style or preferred way of working. That may be because of the type of task I'm doing today. It might be because of a project I'm working on. It might be because of something that's happening outside of work with family or with something else. It might be just the mood I'm in today. So as well as maybe my preferred mode or anyone's preferred mode, there's a lot of flexibility around different ways that people like to work. And that work mode can change by the day and by the hour. You know, there's a huge amount of change, and a truly effective workspace has to cater to all of these different work modes and different preferences that the employees have. And I wanted to start off with this quote from the renowned Los Angeles architect Clive Wilkinson. And really what he's focusing on is choice. And we see that with some of the greatest, the best workspaces that Spacestor have been involved with, is that a wide variety of choice of work points or work settings can create the right environment for every individual and for every task that every individual is looking to carry out. So we're looking at those different work modes, and we start off with the tawny owl. So an owl is a very solitary, focused creature. And this is when we're thinking about those employees, or maybe those times when you want to get some deep, focused work done. And the project reference we have here is one of the big four accountancy firms in London. This was a workspace where they had a wide variety of work settings, including a lot of collaboration spaces, but along with that, they recognized that colleagues also need those spaces to go for heads down, deep focused work. And one of their commitments is that they will provide multiple work styles under one roof. And the booths you can see there, those enclosed private booths, give the colleagues that possibility of private, heads down, deep focus work. And then continue on to the collaboration space, so the collaborative bee. And as we all know, bees live in hives, they thrive on teamwork, they flourish in collaborative environments. And again, this is those colleagues who seek teamwork, who are inspired by brainstorming sessions and vibrant interactions, and excel in open, energetic workspaces. And this project here, this is actually a law firm, and it always makes me smile a little bit. This doesn't look like a traditional law firm workspace, but they've created these variety of work settings using the Spacestor Ionica product you can see there, a modular, future flexible product, but enables you to create spaces which can reflect both the importance of individual, but also collaborative productivity. So creating a variety of work settings again. And then onto the wolf, which is a very nomadic creature, very, and also very, what's the word I'm looking for? Has a variety of different ways that they may choose to work. So very adaptable is the word I'm looking for. You know, you hear of wolves in packs, but also you hear of the lone wolf. And there's a real variety of ways and preferred modes of working that these employees have. So they thrive in diverse workplaces. They embrace hybrid models, transitioning smoothly between home, maybe a flex space or a co-working space, and then maybe being in more of a traditional workspace or office, depending on the task at hand, and seeking those agile multi-use spaces. And this project here in Gdynia in Poland was one where the client had a variety of work settings, including these touchdown spaces for collaboration, including heads down spaces, including open plan space, and just creating a variety of workspace that works for every individual within the environment. And then those creative types, the peacock we're calling them here, where their creativity is energized by vibrant, inspiring environments. And this project here, Adobe's workspace, really colorful, really design-driven, very inspiring for those creative moments, and a very flexible design-driven space as well, with those vibrant options, catering for people who flourish in that kind of environment. And then finally, dolphins. So dolphins are very sensitive creatures to their surroundings, and we draw the parallel with employees with maybe neurodiverse needs, where they may have particular sensitivity to the environment around them. So they might thrive in environments with good noise control, with adjustable lighting, with tech support that supports their communication and focus needs. And this project here with HB Revis, they were focused on adjustable lighting solutions, on noise dampening, on biophilia, as you can see from the images, so that all employees, including those who are sensitive to overstimulation, could work effectively. So just to kind of wrap up on this point, this is a Gensler workplace survey from last year, where an interesting statistic, 48% of employees prefer collaborative spaces, 52% employ individual workspaces. So I think the one thing that this statistic tells us is that one size does not fit all. There's no one type of environment that works for everybody, for every mode. And we must design our spaces to incorporate those variety of modes. So think of your workplace as that rich ecosystem where every habitat, every animal has its own unique needs and ways of thriving. The future of work is not about enforcing uniformity, but it's about embracing what Nick's described as uniqueness at scale, about building environments that empower individuals to thrive by providing choice. So I wanted to move on to talking with Doris around some of the Intuit workspaces and how they've incorporated some of these themes we've been talking about, but also the bigger picture about Intuit and the kind of concept behind your workspaces. So if we move on to maybe talk a bit about this project that's just gone live relatively recently and the kind of concept behind the building, but also your workplace as a bigger picture strategy.
Thanks. It came at an interesting time, I have to say. This was designed before the pandemic, redesigned during the pandemic, built during the pandemic. Then we're kind of tinkering with it now. So it's a great experiment lab. We continue floor by floor to bring in, to try pilots and insights. So that just tells you that even though the building appears to be new and appears to be really fixed, when I walk into, building is in Mountain View, whenever I walk into this building, I don't know exactly what I'm going to find or what's being tinkered with. So it's something that's constantly moving. And having been in workplace for such a long time, I realized that we all know workplace changes dramatically every 3 to 5 years. And so I've been evangelizing, especially with leadership, who's interested in the answers. Mm-hmm. I've been evangelizing the idea of cycles and insights and experimenting and piloting, and finally I feel like I'm finally have convinced them to start using my language, because it used to be like, oh, that's a failure, so we have to change it. So this building represents something that's gone through a lot of cycles before people even inhabited the space. What's interesting is that we moved an entire ecosystem of engineers into this space. And that was an experiment because they were sort of spread out in different buildings throughout the campus. And I have to say, we're really leaning in on significant sites and expanding the workforce, recruiting talent in AI, with AI skill sets, actually across the board, not just engineers. And so having all of the engineers in one place with our AI team and with our tools team actually created a really nice ecosystem of diversity. You'd think that it would be a holistic environment of engineers, but we're learning all kinds of subtle differences. I've been at Intuit 1 year, and I come from the world of design. And when I arrived, the design guidelines were pretty much a compendium of just standards and technical features in the rooms. And I really leaned in on experience. A lot of our functional teams were not cross-functional. Now we're really leaning into cross-function. We have task force. And we're really unpacking the idea of neurodiversity, a very diverse workforce. We've recently really dived into understanding our workforce in the different stripes. So I've always been really passionate about the spectrum. I use the spectrum of work settings, and I'm also evangelizing that not everyone, actually most people don't thrive at a flex desk or at a workstation. So what's new to Intuit is that it used to be a dialectic. It was either an enclosed room or a tethered one-to-one workstation. We're reducing workstations, and we're really experimenting beyond a lounge setting. So actually many of the work settings in B22 that are not workstations are lounge settings, like we see in many of the photos. And we're tinkering, so we're bringing in different types of furniture to diversify. So we have the individual piece. We have too many sofas. And we're starting to add in phone booths and other things that we're getting feedback on. So that's sort of the story of B22.
That's fascinating, and thanks for that. Interested to kind of drill down a bit more on those kind of work settings and the different space types that you've identified.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to know kind of how you kind of started that journey in understanding what those space typologies were, and then what was the outcome of that? Have you ended up with a kind of playbook of type of products that you're using on other projects, or?
Yes. So when we realized that we needed to go beyond the lounge setting, we did a deep dive in ancillary furniture, and wouldn't believe there's actually not a whole lot of it. So if anyone's interested in product development, we need more alternative work settings is what we call them, that allow people to work and lounge at the same time, so it's a hybrid. And I think for almost 15 years as a designer, there haven't been enough options. And so we've really leaned into phone booths. Our VP recently said, I don't want to see an alternative work setting that either doesn't allow someone to fully relax or fully work, right? Kind of not in between.
Interesting.
So we also are really leaning into neurodiversity, neurodivergence, neurosensitivity. And what's interesting, this year I heard this word used called neuroaesthetics. And that puts us all within that realm that we're sensitive to color, we're sensitive to sound, we're sensitive to acoustics. And so the idea of neurodiversity isn't othering, we're all part of that ecosystem. And so if I want to work in a quiet, if I'm an owl and you're a peacock, maybe we'll never meet at work. That's the challenge. But I think that knowing we have the option of going to a hive and then retreating back into our personal workspaces, that's what we're really leaning in on. So the footprint of our neighborhoods is now half workstations and half alternative work points, and our playbook keeps evolving as we start finding new combinations of work settings.
Really interesting. Thanks for sharing that. And with those kind of different work points, work settings, how have you envisaged kind of flex and change? Is that built into your playbook?
Yes. And so we're experimenting with space types. We used to have a library, and I think there's even photography of the library potentially in one of these slides. We're tinkering with the library. We've renamed it to Deep Focus because I think generationally, we talked about this yesterday, Gen Z is like, what's a library? What do we do in the library? What are these books? There are no iPads or digital pads to read, and not really understanding what happens at a library table. Are we supposed to have a meeting in there or not? And so we're moving on to like carrels, high back seats. Some have converted into team spaces or sort of more collectivizing like a hive. But I think we're also changing the nomenclature of our spaces so it's more intuitive for folks to understand like what is happening. And you shouldn't have to explain to someone what a space is for. So I must say the high backs. Individual booths. So the percentages that you shared are really how even within those two monolithic chunks, we're trying to diversify within those chunks as well.
That's great. It looks as though we're just getting to our last few minutes, or last few seconds, I should say. Could you give us like 20 seconds on user feedback? Kind of what's the feedback now you've occupied the building? What's the feedback been from your teams?
It's interesting. It varies, right? So we hear, we design for delight. That's what we say. So if our folks aren't feeling a delightful space, they tell us. Mm-hmm. It's on our survey. So we have a satisfaction survey that really leans in on happiness factors, but we acknowledge it's not just space, it's benefits, it's offerings, it's amenities, it's the commute. So collectively, cross-functionally, we're trying to address those points. The engineers pushed back on the lounge settings, and they really asked for more tools. We are trying to really celebrate what's unique about Intuit is we really lean on customer obsession. Mm-hmm. And so our spaces don't show that enough, and our engineers actually told us it doesn't show that enough. The engineers are very unique, and so 70% of our workforce are engineers. We've really leaned in on that. We're finding actually not the engineers are giving us a lot of feedback, but finance, communications, marketing. Our design team has no pin-up space. So we're finding that these alternative environments actually accommodate the other 30% of our workforce much more easily.
That's great. Good. Well, thanks very much for sharing that, Doris. And we're pretty much at time. So I guess just to wrap up, say thanks very much to all of you for your attention. As Jason would say, we could go on all day, but we can't. But we'd love to continue the conversation. If Spacestor can be a part of your journey, we'd love to invite you to come and chat with us. We're over in booth 11 in the ballroom behind us. You can scan the QR code on the screen and join one of our workplace dialogues groups, which are networking, peer-to-peer networking groups for like-minded workplace design, workplace strategy professionals like yourselves. With that, I think we're done. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you guys very much.